Welcome back to Intersection, a program of KBIA and the Reynolds Journalism Institute. I'm Ryan Famuliner, and today we're talking to some state lawmakers as we preview the 2014 Missouri legislative session. Joining me in studio, Chris Kelly is a Democratic representative for the state's 45th House District in Boone County. Caleb Browden is a Republican House member representing the state's 44th District in Boone and Randolph counties, and Republican House Speaker Tim Jones represents the state's 110th District, serving St. Louis and Franklin counties. He was first elected as Speaker of the House in September 2012. And we'd love to hear from you and our audience as well. Should legislators make Missouri a right-to-work state this year? Let us know by giving us a call at 573-882-8925 or email intersection@kbia.org. You could also tweet us at intersectkbia. Before we go on to that question, we have had some comments from in our chat room and via email I wanted to bring in here. One is from Jeannie. She said that she just enrolled in healthcare via the healthcare.gov website. She has coverage beginning February 1st. Her other options for healthcare are few, if indeed any exist. And while she agrees that the rollout has been problematic, for what reason is the legislature still trying to undermine the ability of people like me to get health insurance? I work every day, but my employer does not offer me benefits. This is my best option and an option I want to keep. I guess Representative Rowden, Speaker Jones, I think she's saying for people who still may fall in that coverage gap, who maybe, have that ability through healthcare.gov, if they are eligible in that with Medicaid were expanded. That's her, I think, line of thought there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think and what I've said all along, what I said last year was, we are admittedly low in some of our thresholds in Missouri. I got no problem admitting that. And there is a coverage gap that exists that I think we need to try and figure out a way to address. I'll be more than happy to say both of those things. With that being said, we have to understand, number one, that the rollout of the larger legislation has been very problematic, has been riddled with a lot of issues. Last year, part of the when we were given our credit rating, we maintained our AAA credit rating. But one of the reasons why we could eventually go down is because of the amount of money that we have tied to the federal government as a state. And so, you have to think about this is a big picture discussion, and I don't discount her situation for 1 second. And I'm grateful that there is a way for her to have coverage, but we're talking about an issue that affects literally every single Missourian. If you're not getting coverage from healthcare.gov, we're talking about your taxpayer dollars. And so there is a much bigger discussion that involves a lot of variables that we have to have, and I think we should have it. I think the working poor of Missouri and those folks that would potentially benefit from this, I think they deserve that discussion, and I think we should have it. And like I said, I'm more than welcome to come to the table on that. But it's a much larger issue with a lot of variables that we have to take into account.
For every one Jeannie, and I think that's wonderful that she was able to find a product that fit her lifestyle and her current needs. I've heard from other Jeannies and other Joes and other Janes who have said, because of this rollout, the president's promise of if you like your plan, you can keep it has not become true for them. I know countless business owners that I could sit here and recite the rest of the day who have said, our healthcare premiums have gone up. We're not sure we can continue to provide health insurance for our 10 employees or our 20 employees or our 30 employees. So for every one person that's been able to access through healthcare.gov, all you got to do is look at the statistics. Number one, the enrollments are lagging way behind what the federal government needs them to be at this point in time, and they don't look like they're catching up. The premiums are a lot more expensive than they thought they would be, and for all those people who are on individual insurance plans, we have millions of Americans who have lost coverage. So we're at a net loss right now on January 1 of 2014 of people who have health insurance in this country or who are struggling to retain it. So the one-size-fits-all model of the federal government inserting itself into this area that it probably never belonged in the first place is not working. And Republicans have had plenty of proposals for our healthcare cost insurance problem over the last several decades. Congressman Ryan has had plan after plan after plan. Speaker Gingrich before him and others before him have talked about the portability of health insurance plans, have talked about ownership of health savings accounts. Something that the big institutions and hospitals have fought us on for decades, transparency in healthcare cost. Why don't we have this crisis in any other insurance model across our country except for healthcare? It's because of the barriers that are put up to this state-by-state employer-provided strange world of health insurance that we're in. We need to put the free market into healthcare, and I think we can solve a lot of our problems.
Okay. We'll have to move on, but Representative Kelly, anything else you wanted to add on that before we move on? There's lots else to get to. Okay, great. I mentioned earlier right to work. That's another thing that's likely to come up. There was a hearing today, House hearing today about that as well. Representative Jones, I guess, how likely is that that's going to come up this year?
Sure,
as well?
I'll start because it's my fault, right? We're having the debate because of me. Well, it really isn't because of me. This debate has been percolating probably since 1978, which is the last time that the people of Missouri voted on it in a global way. And the world has changed quite a bit in 26 years. And I think everyone knows what my position is on what I call worker freedom and choice, and has been for the last many years. I've simply decided it's at the point in time where our state needs to have the debate. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know if our state Senate is going to be interested in the issue or not. I do know the majority floor leader in the Senate, Representative Ron Richard, when he was the speaker, he is from a part of the state and represents a constituency which very much wants this to happen. And I know he has spoken very strongly for it. But I don't know that President Pro Tem Dempsey is as excited. So I've decided, well, let's start the debate in the House. We have to look at economic reality. We are surrounded nearly by states that have this option, that have worker freedom and choice. 6 of our 8 bordering states have this dynamic in place. 24 states in the union now have this economic model. If you look at a lot of the statistics and studies, you'll see that the most population growth, job growth, and even increases in wages are in those states that have lower tax burdens and who have worker freedom and choice. I know many feel that there is going to be a lot of bad possibilities that come out of this. I think it's mainly fear. You have states like Oklahoma and Tennessee that are right-to-work states where union membership has actually increased. In Oklahoma, it's been by the tens of thousands. In my home district, I have a 300-acre parking lot, and the unions did not save Chrysler from maintaining its presence in our state. So by being a union shop state, we've lost jobs. I think it's time to try something new.
Representative Kelly, what do you think about its chances, and what are your thoughts on this idea?
It's absolutely certain that adopting right to work will mean that people who work for a living will make less money. That, I think, is a guaranteed certainty. It's happened everywhere. The best educated, the most affluent states are ones that are not right to work states. I believe that this is a way to transfer money from people who go to work every day and work with their hands to people who take their money to Bimini and get tax breaks. I think this is a direct assault on people who work for a living outside in a backhoe versus the guys who sit in Dallas and run construction companies in Missouri. It's a transfer of money from working people to big corporations out of state. It's not going to produce any new money. That's the economic effect. Now, the political effect is such that I think it will never pass.
Why not?
Because the practical reality is that if right to work is on the ballot, fewer Republicans will be elected to the state Senate. I think that is a matter that a Republican state senator said that to me in no uncertain terms. This is on the ballot, we lose seats. And I think that will mean that it will never be on the ballot.
And that's the other approach that could be taken here, right? Because Governor Nixon has said he would veto this. I mean, do you see that as something that might pursue in the House to get this on the ballot rather than passing it through the legislature?
Well, the political reality for Governor Nixon is his largest campaign contributors are big labor unions to the tune of millions of dollars. And if you want to look at who's in the 1%, you need to look no further than union bosses who make, upwards of $400,000 or $500,000. And I think when you're talking about workers, I want more workers in this state. I want more workers earning more wages. And the simple economic fact is we have lost tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs over the last 3 decades. Chrysler is gone from Fenton. Ford is gone from Hazelwood, Missouri. Many of our other small manufacturers have left our state as well. When you look at states that have this worker freedom option, and all you need to look is at the epicenter, the former epicenter of union organization in our country, which was Michigan, and specifically Detroit. Being a closed union shop state did nothing to benefit that state. In fact, since they've gone to right to work, they've stopped the bleeding. They've stopped the loss of jobs. They have some opportunity. On the tax front, New York State is offering new businesses that come there tax-free offers for the next 10 years. So states are letting go of the old big government solutions of more taxing, more spending, more union organization, and going to worker freedom and lower taxation. So we can look to the north and the east, where the Rust Belt has essentially failed, or we can look to the south and the west, where population and manufacturing are moving. And I think it's time for Missouri to break the status quo and to say to businesses, we're open. Please come here.
We'll jump into another topic here because, again, there's a few other things we want to get to before the show ends here. The transportation sales tax failed last year. 1 cent sales tax statewide. It was attempted to pass. It would have gone to bunch of different infrastructure projects. We have a comment from Dale Roberts here in Columbia. He says he wants to see more road repair. He's on his fourth windshield in 7 years from driving Highway 63 between Columbia and Jefferson City. He says it shouldn't.
The way he drives.
I know it too.
He says it shouldn't be a partisan issue, though. He says it's a public safety issue. What are the chances
For
that
us,
this year?
it's not a partisan issue. None of this capital improvement stuff. This is something where the three of us are in lockstep. I think I voted for the transportation sales tax. I don't know what you guys did on it.
I did.
But the fact of the matter is we could put thousands of people to work in the state of Missouri and repair our infrastructure. And we've got at least two kinds of infrastructure. One, we have highway infrastructure. And two, we have public building infrastructure, the hospital in Fulton, the state capitol, the medical school in Kansas City, economic development opportunities in St. Louis and UMSL. And Tim, the speaker, was the leader on this issue last year. He sponsored a bill that passed the House that would have put literally thousands of people in the state of Missouri to work. The Senate did not take it up. But this is bigger, way bigger than anything the governor's proposed in terms of job development. One of the interesting questions is, should we combine the highway and the non-highway capital improvements, infrastructure bills? And I don't know the answer. I know it's something we ought to talk about.
Okay.
I think one of the issues that the 1 cent sales tax faced among legislators, and I had discussions with both of these sides, and you have Republicans on the right who would say, that's a big old tax increase and not something that I can put my name on. So you have folks in opposition on that side, and you got folks on the left who say, well, a sales tax increase of that magnitude is quite regressive and not something that they would be able to get behind. So you have some political realities on just raising the sales tax by a penny for a defined period of time that I think would make it challenging for that to pass. What Chris said is reality about if those two things were to be on the ballot at the same time, obviously we have a huge issue because you're asking for Missourians to pony up a lot of money. And so I think we're gonna have to get creative on it. I don't see a path forward for the transportation tax. I think the bonding, I'm obviously in support of, and think that there is less really hard vocal opposition that I've seen anyway to a bonding package as opposed to a 1 cent. So, but it'll be I think it'll be a tough road for either one of them probably.
Okay. We've got John from Columbia on the phone, wanting to talk a little bit about the transportation sales tax and infrastructure idea. John, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. I am enjoying the dialogue. I have a comment and a couple questions for your panel of the speaker and the two representatives, and they do relate to the initiative for a transportation sales tax. I preface my comments that I do believe we need to put more money, a lot more money, into transportation infrastructure, and I'm not adverse to higher taxes, but I can think of nothing more patently unfair than this proposed sales tax to improve transportation. And by that I mean the agricultural interests, both corporate and privately owned, are not going to pay a penny toward the sales tax. And the boaters, you go over to the marina and buy a fishing boat, you have to pay sales tax, but those $200,000 luxury yachts on Lake of the Ozarks won't pay a thing. Finally, on trucks, none of the 18-wheelers in interstate commerce will pay a penny toward the sales tax. And just 2 years ago, the legislature exempted all trucks over 54,000 pounds from the sales tax. That means really no heavy truck will pay anything toward the sales tax. So my two questions, if we are going to move forward with this sales tax, would your panel agree that the voters should be at least aware of what special interest groups will be excluded from paying the tax? Or alternatively, would they be willing to put a 54,000-pound weight limit on the trucks traveling our highways during the course of this tax, since they will not be contributing toward the road repairs?
Let me take the first crack at this. John, there is a problem with every single solution to our transportation system. Gas tax, there's a lot of problems with. Toll roads, there's a lot of problems with. Sales tax, everybody acknowledges there's problems. On the other hand, if we don't do something, 70 is going to be a parking lot. We have our highways are right now in the situation where we're hurting our own commerce by allowing our highway system to deteriorate. I agree with, as you know, many of the things you say about the unfairness, but the big picture, we still have to fix our roads.
Yeah, I would say to John, all of his comments go to the crux of the question, which I'm most concerned about. Will the voters approve this initiative?
That's right.
I believe if this initiative is given an up or down vote in both the House and the Senate, it will likely pass this year. I personally voted against the measure, but again, I said earlier today that if a majority of the House, especially a strong majority, want to proceed on an issue, I don't believe one person should stop them. The House is not the Senate. So I did let this go last year, and I was correct. A strong majority of the House supported it. My biggest concern, though, is what happens on the ballot. And John's correct. The opponents of this measure are going to say this is an $8 billion tax increase, giving MoDOT an $800 million blank check every year. I believe state government should provide for a good public education, provide a social safety net for the truly poor, and we should build roads and bridges and infrastructure. And I keep asking, and Chris is right, Representative Kelly's right, every option is fraught with peril and problems. Is there a fourth way? I think eventually we need to get to the point as a state where we have a line item in our budget every year of funding directed for MoDOT, because I think roads, bridges, and infrastructure is something state government should absolutely support. We may have to cut out some other programs, but moving commerce through our state should be one of our top priorities.
Okay. Thanks very much for your call, John. I'm actually going to bring on another caller. Thank you. So the next call, actually, Dale Roberts called in as well, who apparently many of you know. Dale, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. I hope you didn't hear them talking smack on you earlier. But what do you want to talk about today?
I deserve it, and I'm glad I'm glad those folks are willing to come on and answer tough questions. I always respect that. When you were talking about saving money for the state and looking at the budget and those related issues, I don't know. I know there's a committee on fraud, waste, and abuse. I don't know if there's one looking at efficiency. But, for example, maybe 4 years ago, the governor eliminated all the law enforcement officers at Alcohol and Tobacco Control, basically gutted the agency, but they still have a director who makes $80,000, $90,000 a year plus $50,000 in benefits to supervise maybe 10 people. And that's just one example. Is there anybody looking at efficiency issues?
Yeah, there's a lot of people looking at efficiency issues. And I, as you know, opposed the removal or the transfer of the authority for the alcohol or the inspectors that you talked about to the municipalities. But he's still got to look at what the municipalities are doing. But your point is a good one.
Yeah, and I know too, Paul Kurtman's committee that he chairs. Went around the state and did some hearings, but then also he's done a lot of his own work. I think the main motivation there is to find redundancy and efficiency in government and try to eliminate some of that. And I think he's he's got a website set up that if I was a good friend, I'd know the URL of. But he's really aimed at that, and I think he's done some good work. It's not bomb throwing type stuff, but it's just, look, we're wasting some money here, and maybe we shouldn't be wasting money here, and let's do something about it. So there are a lot of people that are interested in that, I think.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for the call, Dale. I want to remind our listeners that this is Intersection, a program of KBIA and the Reynolds Journalism Institute. I'm Ryan Famuliner, and today we're talking to some state lawmakers as we preview the 2014 Missouri legislative session. Joining me in studio, Chris Kelly is a Democratic representative for the state's 45th House District in Boone County. Caleb Browden is a Republican House member representing the state's 44th District in Boone and Randolph counties, and Republican House Speaker Tim Jones represents the state's 110th District serving St. Louis and Franklin counties. He was first elected as Speaker of the House in September 2012. And we'd love to hear from you and our audience as well. What do you think should be a priority for legislators this year? Let us know by giving us a call at 573-882-8925 or email intersection@kbia.org. You could also tweet us at intersectkbia. And I'll bring in another comment here we have from Irene. Or
Ryan, let
Chris
me
Kelly,
make
want
a
to jump
point.
in something real quick? Sure,
on
go
the
ahead.
capital improvement stuff, people here should remember that Speaker Jones was the leader in the effort to adopt the bond issue, which, if passed, would have built the new engineering school on the University of Missouri campus. So I appreciate Tim's work on that. It was very important for Columbia, Missouri.
And that was the result of a committee comprised of legislators from all over the state of Missouri. Mid-Missouri was well represented, but so was Kansas City, St. Louis, Southwest, Southeast Missouri, Northeast Missouri. And Representative Kelly and I were presented with a lot of creative problems that we had to come up with creative solutions for. So we have a host of infrastructure needs around our state. And with the failure of the federal government to provide us a highway bill or really any other kind of infrastructure assistance, we've had to look inwards at ourselves. And we've had to look at our AAA bond rating, the fact that we just paid off the last series of bonds. Missouri is a low debt state. We balance our budget. And we said, this is a proper use of our time in the legislature and our legislative resources. And we had identified project areas all across the state of Missouri that I will say when the Senate hopefully acts on our bonding bill this year, we will immediately put Missourians to work all across our state and fix some serious infrastructure problems that have gone unrealized for a couple decades now.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring in another comment from Irene from our chat room. She says, Missouri's General Assembly is an embarrassment to the citizens of this great state. It was bad in the 80s, but now the process is truly broken. The unwillingness to address campaign finance reform will only continue to make it more difficult to fix what's truly wrong in Missouri. So she says that she thinks that she has three suggestions about campaign finance reform. She says address contribution limits. There should be absolutely no PAC to PAC contributions or PAC to individual contributions. Basically, she's saying that you should not be hiding where the money comes from. Any reactions to that, and what kind of ethics reform we may be looking at this session?
Well, I totally agree in one piece of that if however money is getting to a political candidate, the public should know about it. Period. I mean that's a complete. That's definitely something that we need to make sure is happening in the state. As far as campaign finance caps go, in my view, there's a couple of issues. One, you can make a pretty good argument that it's a First Amendment sort of argument where this is anyone's right to free speech, and this is how they're playing that out. Number two, the money's going to get there. Now, you can make arguments against that, but at the end of the day, I firmly believe that if folks want money to get to a political candidate, regardless of what limits and PAC to PAC and committee to committee, whatever that looks like, I think it's still going to get there. And so I think the best thing that we can do at this point in our state is to make sure that the money that's getting from point A to point B, that anyone in the public can get online or get wherever they need to get and know where that's coming from. I think the transparency and accountability piece of that is of equal or more importance than anything we could do on the cap side. I have an ethics reform bill that I filed that deals with some other things on the other side with lobbyist gifts and a revolving door for legislators to lobbyists, and I know the Speaker has co-sponsored another ethics bill, and so I think there's some holes that we need to fill. I don't necessarily agree with Irene on her thoughts, but I think there are some holes in Missouri that we need to address.
Representative Kelly, what do you think about
Well,
this idea?
Irene says that the legislature was an embarrassment in the 80s and it is embarrassment now.
What's the common
And there's only
denominator?
one common denominator.
It's his fault.
It's me.
And they're rid of you next year anyway, so.
Denominator. Look, in the 80s, I sponsored Missouri and passed Missouri's first public disclosure bill. I think that we should have finance limits. I think the amount of money we're spending on campaigns is obscene, and the people passed it, but the legislature repealed it. I think it was a mistake, and I hope that we will reinstate limits.
Okay.
My thought on this is, and I'll side with my good old friend Senator Tim Green, Democratic state senator from St. Louis County, who was unapologetic in his defense of allowing anyone to write whatever check they wanted to whatever politician they wanted to support. And he and I, different sides of the political aisle, agreed it is an expression of free speech. And the Supreme Court has issued a couple rulings in line with that. Here's what I would say. Unless you're going to prohibit all money, government money, public money, private money, from politics, like Representative Rowden said, it's going to find its way in. When we prohibited alcohol in this country for a few years back in the, I don't know, you were around, right? Guess what? Alcohol was here in the United States, and I think when you're talking about something like that, alcohol is a powerful tool. It has to be used very carefully. Money's a powerful tool and has to be used carefully too. Transparency is what we need to have in the process. Otherwise, you're inviting people to figure out how to game the system. But if you have full transparency and accountability in politics, then as Representative Rowden points out, you're going to be able to identify who supports who and for how much.
Well, there were a lot of other things we wanted to get to. We only have about a minute left in the show. So I guess what else should we be looking for? I guess just some quick hits of what else we're going to be talking about this session.
I want to go back to, I didn't answer the question about Boeing, and I just want to say,
sure.
I'm just going to wrap that into one nutshell. You saw a functional government that week. You saw your state government take a big, huge problem and come up with a solution. And that was because of two things. Governor Nixon, for the first time, in my opinion, in over 5 years, came to the legislature, presented the problem, and also said what he needed and came up with a solution and worked with us. And then you saw bipartisan agreement in the House and the Senate come up with a solution to say Missouri is open for business. I think there's a number of issues we can come together upon and say that we are, again, open for business, and here's the legislative vehicles that will help us provide more jobs and more opportunity and growth for Missouri.
Okay. Representative Kelly, what else are you looking for?
I'm going to file a bill to repeal term limits. I think during my time I've seen both term limits before we had them and after we have them. I think the people now are every bit as smart and hardworking as they were in the bad old days. They just don't have enough time to learn the complexities of state government, and they're maybe too tied up in advancement.
Okay. Caleb Rowden, you get 10 seconds.
Working on bringing some stuff to Mizzou. There's a 50-50 state match program that they're working on, get some new money on campus. We're going to try to get that done.
Okay. Well, that is all the time we have for today's intersection. Thanks to our guests, Democratic Representative Chris Kelly, Republican Representative Caleb Rowden, and Republican House Speaker Tim Jones. We'd like to remind those of you enjoying this rebroadcast that Intersection takes place live for a full hour from 2 to 3 every Monday afternoon. Intersection is produced by Raymond Tungakar, Janet Saidi, and Ruben Stern. Travis McMillan is our technical director with production assistance from Caleb Hoke and Casey Morrell. Pat Akers is our audio producer with production assistance from Caleb Hoke and Casey Morrell. Pat Akers is our audio producer. Executive directors are Mike Dunn and Mike McKean, and I'm Ryan Famuliner. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great week.